when I thought about the topic and discussing with Michael, technology is moving away from being an enabler of business, where we simply digitized processes, to more being a creator of opportunities and changing business models. So what we see in other industries and what to expect in our own industry is that innovation is going to be leading to changes, using innovations to create new opportunities, to create models. A good example in mind in our industry is an organization called Lemonade Investments, which I like to follow, and I'm sure some of us are familiar. But this is an insurance company that was founded in 2015. I think they've hit revenues of about $120 million a year. Interestingly, 70% of their customers are below 35 years old. They own 567 employees in their employment. Year on year, they've been growing at 140% just over that 5 years, and they are now ranked as one of the top insurers in the United States. And interestingly, they also offer only 4 products. And one of the key winners for them is that they are collecting data points about their customers 100 times more than traditional insurers do. So 100 more pieces of information about their customers than traditional insurers do. And therefore, they're able to use that knowledge to predict the behavior of their customers and therefore come up with products and different types of rating. On the claim side, they've settled about 30% of their claims via AI on claims chat box. So it's an interesting change that is happening, and I'm certain even in our country we are going to see similar kind of changes as we move ahead. So today we've got Michael Muriungi. Michael Muriungi works for Google. He's the leader for government affairs and public policies in Eastern Africa, with expertise in public policy, government relations, and he's trained in ICT law and ICT reporting. He's formerly CEO at Kenya National Council of Law Reporting, which is a state corporation in the judiciary, and has worked with UNESCO on various initiatives. He has published on cyber crimes and is Kenya's own designated contributor in International Encyclopedia of Cyber Law. He holds a Bachelor of Laws degree and Masters, both in ICT law from the University of Nairobi. So we'd be hoping that Michael, you'll be sharing your experience, in the Google ecosystem, to think about how we can use tech and innovation for growth and efficiency in our industry. And I think as you go along, it would also be interesting, now that you're an ICT lawyer, to also talk about data and data protection, because that's obviously space that's going to become very critical, as we start thinking about innovation and use of data, to know and to understand how we ensure that we're also doing the right things, even as we get into this. So, karibu sana, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George, for that introduction. I hope I'm clear and that you can see my screen. About the
can.
And the in-person
virtually
audio.
We can.
Okay. I just want to do a check. I know technology has challenged us. How much time do I have, George? Or what time should I stop? George,
Michael, let's push for 40 minutes.
Including Q&A?
Yes, in total. We've lost quite a bit of time on the technology. I
understand. That should bring us up to 12:20. Okay, fine. Not a problem. I'll try and do that. But first, I want to really thank, for me being given this opportunity, and to begin by appreciating Bwana Godfrey Kiptum, the commissioner from IRA, and Madam Agnes Macharia, who has been on my case with her team from way back to just get me to lock down this invitation. I'm really honored to address you. I'll start by saying that I'm pleased to have the invitation, and all the guests that I'm having the opportunity to address. It's the first time I'm addressing such a huge gathering of people in the insurance sector, and it's a privilege for me. So I hope I can do justice to the topic, considering that I am more of a lawyer, a technology lawyer, as opposed to a technology person. But I'll try my best to first share with you what I see as the role of innovation in our work as professionals, the nurturing of a culture of innovation based on my experience here at Google. And I'll go through some of the technological innovations and disruptive technologies that we think are on the horizon. Some of them are already here with us, and it's only a question of when we are going to embrace them. But I believe we have, and you have already, at least for some of them. So I don't want to just go into the background of the insurance industry. I have to confess that since high school, where I learned the principles of insurance and the basics and how it works, and got my grade in business education, the only other interaction I've had with insurance is when I have to insure my property and my vehicle. But I remain very aware of the basic pillars that how the insurance industry works. It's a guarantee of payment for an uncertain future event, where the other party agrees to pay a premium in exchange for the protection against that event. And generally the principles, I think the one that I always remember is Uberime Fidei, because I like to impress my teachers with Latin. But I want to say that I think innovation, because it's a key to what I'm presenting about, is very primary. And in fact, innovation is always bigger than technology, because it is the mother of technology. There's a quote, I think it is attributed to a great scientist, that imagination is better than knowledge. And the importance of nurturing a culture of innovation. So it is not about nurturing technology, because technology is a byproduct of innovation. It is how do we build a sustainable culture of innovation as institutions, an environment that supports creative thinking, generates new and improved products and services, extracts social value from information and knowledge. So if you look at the history of Google, it was founded about 14 or 15 years ago by two gentlemen. And this is how it looks when it was founded. It was in the garage. You can see the office is chaotic. This is Larry and Sergey, who are the founders. And the question is, how has this company moved in about 14 years from this to this, big establishment in San Francisco that is now doing business in, like almost 60 or so countries across the world, with about 150 offices and thousands and thousands of employees. And how has this company continued? And if you look at how we at Google continue to, generate new products and build products that are preferred by many, many users, going back to 1997 with search, and there's Maps, there's Android, there's Google Play, there's Google Photos, Gmail, YouTube, Chrome, and Google Drive. At least each one of you would have used, I hope, one of these products, if not more, and I hope that you find it useful. So I just want to say that Google is very much powered by machine learning, and most of the developments that have happened over the years have been very iterative in how they've improved our product offering. So I want to begin by saying that the first thing that I always notice in Google is, in terms of its culture of innovation, is having a vision that touches, moves, and inspires. We have a mission to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. It's a very big mission. It's very broad. It is always calling powerfully into doing something big for the world. It's very ambitious. And we like it because it always calls us to be a force for good in terms of how information can change lives and improve, improve things for many people across the world. Secondly, we like to very much focus on the user. We believe that when we focus on the best experience for the user not focusing on the bottom line, not focusing on building products that serve a bottom line, but serve the needs of our users, not company goals. We'll get everything right. And striving for continual innovation, not instant perfection. Because if you look, for example, at Google search, that is a screenshot of how it was when it started, or the early years. We were not the first ones to start a search engines. We were not even the first ones to start an email, product. And by far, we were not even the first ones to start, phone hardware, including, when you think of something like Android, how late we came into it. But continual innovation and building on products and improving and getting the feedback from, how our users, how they're interacting with the product, and building partnerships has moved us to where we are very competitively positioned in the industry and very much preferred in the value we offer to many customers. The other thing about Google that I know is that, we believe that, innovation and ideas come from anywhere. We believe that hierarchy should not get in the way of innovation. That is built even into the design of our offices. We have less individual offices and more of shared spaces. One day, actually, one of our senior vice presidents came to Kenya, and he came to our office, and it is an open plan office. And I remember that he was supposed to, if he wanted to meet with me, he would go into my Google Calendar, he would see where I have meetings, and he will look for any free spot in my calendar and book, and I'll get a notification and accept. And he will actually come and look at the office and find where there's a free desk and sit. And he's not supposed to, nobody's supposed to worry about, oh, where will the vice president sit? Where can I get his chair? Because people have other things to worry about, servicing the needs of our customers. So we do have a hierarchy. I don't want to sound like we don't have hierarchies, but we don't let them, bog us down in, ceremonies and other things that do not speak to, servicing our needs to innovate and continue servicing the needs of our products. So our group CEO is Sundar Pichai, who you can check the news. Earlier this year, I had a virtual meeting with President Uhuru Kenyatta, and even last week made a very big commitment across Africa. And also another big thing we have in Google is, we believe very strongly that it is not about technology and solving humanity's biggest problems. It's actually people who do. So investing in people is very key, because the people are the ones who drive the innovation, who make the culture of innovation. A culture is made of people, and those people are the ones who build products. They are human beings who build the products that make the company very successful. So investing in people in terms of compensation and benefits and their well-being, investing in their comfort of themselves and their loved ones and their their dependents is very, very primary for Google. And that means that, when people don't have to worry about, basic needs, they are in a better frame of mind to think about how they can, serve the goals of the organization, which is serving the goals of the customer. And lastly, being transparent and oversharing. At Google, we make sure that we are in terms of access to information, we like to err on the side of oversharing information and making sure that, I've seen in many corporations where there's hierarchy, there's something that the board of directors know about, which the managers don't know about. There's something the managers know about, which the junior managers don't know about. There's something junior managers know about, which, the other employees don't know about. In Google, we try very much to break down these silos of information and to treat every employee like a board member, and or every board member like an employee. We are very transparent in how we pose questions to management on what's happening in the company. We have forums in which anybody can post a question, and it has to be answered at the highest level, regardless of who you are. But of course, being a very big organization with many employees. We have mechanisms where, if I post a question and many of my colleagues at Google thinks it's important, then in the forums in which we periodically get addressed by and interact with senior management, a question can be upvoted by anyone. And that question that commends itself in terms of the highest number of votes, it being important to many employees, will need to be answered. And it's a question on anything. And I think that's one of the levelers I find at Google, that anybody can ask anything, and as long as it's important and upvoted, it will need to be answered. We like to keep it very open and very equal in terms of engagements. And then we pride ourselves also in being an enabler, being a platform. If you look at our products, for example, if among those among you who have used any of Google's product, I would like to ask you how much money you have paid to Google to use that product. I guess if it's Gmail or YouTube or Google Search, you're doing it for free, which means I would ask you, how much would you be willing to pay to use a product if we made it something that we have to charge for? But that's a question and answer for another day. But I'd like to say that what we pride ourselves in is making sure that first, we want to be a platform that people come and find value. And I know many people do not understand how Google makes its money. Probably in a particular room, maybe 50% will be wondering how Google makes its money. We make it through advertising. But it means somebody is able to pay a premium to advertise their product. And that payment helps Google to make the money that we need to build products for people who would otherwise not afford them. So open technologies, and knowing that we grow and others grow. The businesses, the SMBs, you who use our products, the creatives who use YouTube, they grow and we grow. And our incentive is to continue building these platforms and optimize them for open use and access to universal access to all. So I would like now to switch gears and move to technological innovations that and disruptive technologies, and what I see as what's on the horizon and what's already happening. Let me begin first with the COVID-19 pandemic, because it's the moment we are in right now, and a lot of countries, individuals, families, we've been struggling with this. It's been called a once-in-a-lifetime crisis, and I put once in a lifetime there because I know in insurance we like to talk about risks. So this is a risk that has been estimated to happen once every probably 100. Well, they say the last global pandemic was over a century ago. And COVID-19 has shifted many things. It has shifted our sense of health, safety, and access to healthcare. There are questions around, how someone can access medical insurance for COVID. Our sense of our appetite for risk, the risk of another global pandemic during our lifetime, and our inclination to ensure that risk. People who feel that, yes, it's a once-in-a-lifetime crisis. What are the chances of this may happen again? And what is my predisposition to take on and even probably pay a higher premium to an insurance company for something like this in the future? And as an insurance company, how am I positioned to engage in a conversation with users, with potential clients on the nature of this risk and what's the insurance product that would appeal to them feeling safe and secure in addressing this risk? Sorry, did someone say something? Okay, I'll continue. So I want to also talk about cloud computing, which is the delivery of different services through the internet. So cloud computing is on-demand availability of a computer system, resource, and data that largely resides on the internet. And the example I want to give here is, how in my previous engagement in government, we worked on redefining the role of the Sct Manager. And it was about, we realized that, it's no longer about having the Sct Manager and his team do troubleshooting and connect cables and check whose laptop is working or not, and whose email is working or not. We said these services can be pushed to the cloud. We can procure a cloud service for email and for workplace collaboration so that ICT don't have to worry about troubleshooting. Their role is to advise the organization on new technologies and how they can be implemented to drive the business. Using cloud to save costs instead of having to acquire servers, securing the data. Right now, like George said, the conversation around data protection, there are concerns that if data is hosted outside of, before the concern was hosting outside of the office, now it's about hosting outside of the country. What are the implications of that? And many cloud providers are coming up with many solutions that meet those needs. But this idea and concern around data being saved in a particular place may be problematic in many ways, because if you say data has to be hosted, Kenya's data has to be hosted locally, we normally argue that that creates a single point of failure. And if a disaster happens, or hackers know that they can target a particular place, then that becomes a single point of failure where that data is compromised and the service is undeliverable. But the way the internet works, it works with when data is saved in multiple of security. That's the security argument. But also even in terms of governments needing to access data for purposes of law enforcement, I think it's still not arguable, because the laws, the processes that govern access to data are laws on diplomacy and laws governing what is called mutual legal assistance. And so regardless of where the data is located, it's possible to actually have a legal system and legal provisions, and they do exist in a number of countries for access to that data. And of course, with outsourcing, the hosting of data, we've improved collaboration, low maintenance costs, and most importantly, as an organization, you avail yourself of the benefit of the computing power of analytics. So if many cloud providers that exist, and Google has a cloud service, gives you the best-in-class technology to extract knowledge and wisdom from data. It gives you tools that have been refined, that are driven by AI, that have been developed by using the top talent at Google to for you to apply this, whether it is in analytics, and extract value from the data that you have. So without that, if you're choosing to host your data on your hard disk, on USB, the power of the net and the power of analytics is lost. And then, of course, there's blockchain technology. It's normally very difficult to define and explain. But generally, I think blockchain has been described as trustless and fully decentralized peer-to-peer immutable data storage that is spread over a network of participants, often referred to as nodes. And it is resistant, and this is its most important, I think, characteristic. It is resistant to retroactive modification. That is why it has been applied in cryptocurrency. You've heard of digital currency being issued. Before, of course, the challenge has always been when you issue currency, how do you prevent someone from revoking the issue of the currency? And now this is possible with blockchain. So you can imagine what this means for insurance. That I've seen studies that talk about it's now possible to actually apply blockchain for event-triggered smart contracts, increase backend efficiency, disintermediation, where you have less intermediaries dealing between yourself and the client, better pricing and risk assessments, and new types of insurance, not to mention reaching the underserved. I'll give a few of the examples where, because blockchain is also integrated with artificial intelligence. And with artificial intelligence, this is where intelligence is demonstrated by machines. Development of computer systems able to perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence. So we are increasingly seeing machines performing things like visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, language translation, Down there, you see Project Debater is a machine learning application by IBM that debates. It formulates an argument. It's actually fed with a debate question. It formulates an argument, listens live to the response from the other human debater, gives a counter argument, and gives a closing. And this is a machine that is doing this. So you can see the level that this has gone to in terms of how machine intelligence is being applied. Alphago is a subsidiary of Google, where this machine played this game called Go, a Japanese game that is very complex. It is like chess, but even more complex. But it played and even defeated the human champion of Go. And Waymo is Google's driverless car company or sister organization that makes cars that are completely driverless. This is being tested a lot, especially in San Francisco. And this is technology that is being used by other companies as well. And in the future, we'll probably have cars that will not have drivers. So you can see the extent of the application of machine learning. But I'd like you to read more. There's this article that I found, which is very insightful. Actually, a study by one of the think tanks on Insurance 2030, the impact of AI on the future of insurance. I will just want to finish very quickly, so I'll browse very quickly through it. They talk about the trends in AI, the opportunities, why the explosion of data from connected devices, what it means for insurance, the increased prevalence of physical robotics, what does that mean for changing of how humans interact with each other, what does that mean for risk assessment and product liability, and customer expectations and risk pools in insurance. And open source and data ecosystem. The ability to create these clouds of data where data can be sourced by insurance that has demographic data on what is the profile of citizens in terms of their predisposition to certain risks. And of course, managing the data access and privacy around that with cybersecurity. And advances in the cognitive technologies that process complex data from active insurance products and are able to model and constantly learn and evolve as the user is engaging with the product. So to conclude, they say that the future state of insurance, and actually this future is actually the present for a number of organizations. They see a change in distribution. So in terms of the experience of purchasing insurance being faster, last week I had to renew the insurance for my car, and now I have seen that we don't have to print the sticker. I don't have to go for the sticker at the insurance office. They send it to me. It has a barcode, and I print it. We still have the law in Kenya that it has to be displayed on the windscreen of the car, so I have to print. Otherwise, I'd be happy to actually have it on my phone. In the same way that the police can verify my driver's license using a shortcode. AI algorithms that create risk profiles. The role of agents is being redefined to become process facilitators and product educators, meaning you can sell any type of cover, you can use smart personal assistants to manage portfolios, personalize customer interactions, and have a larger client base. And also looking at underwriting and policy changing. Underwriting being reduced to a few seconds because you have automated and supported systems by machine and deep learning models that help to do that. And even claims processing, so that most activities are automated. I believe some of you practitioners and the companies have done this already, but there is always more you can do in this area. Advanced algorithms to handle initial claims routing, claims triage triggered upon loss. You can imagine a driverless car that gets into an accident, and that moment triggers communication to insurance, and a triage process for evaluating the loss is initiated on the scene of the accident, before so many other variables have changed. And this helps for organizations in insurance to shift from monitoring, to monitoring, prevention, and mitigation. And the beauty of machine learning is that, for example, with driverless cars, when a driverless car is involved in an accident, the entire fleet gets updated about that risk and how to avoid it, and instantaneously, as opposed to when an accident happened in a car that is not smart, so to speak, and then a study has to be done, somebody has to be prosecuted, and somebody has to later share the information on how that accident happened and how it can be prevented. So these are the benefits of that. So let me close there by saying that, how I think insurance can prepare for this future is by integrating technology policy and strategy, getting smart on AI-related technologies and trends, building and implementing new technologies, data, and AI strategy, and creating the right talent and technology infrastructure to meet these needs. Thank you very much. Let me end there.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think there's been one question on the chat that asks how Google rewards innovative staff members. So I don't know if you've got the answer to that.
Yes, I have an answer. I'm trying to see whether I can share some. I don't want to share anything confidential, but definitely there's a lot of internal inbuilt rewards, either from the human resource side of it. And what I've also seen is that we've had people actually who come to Google based on a business that they had established as innovators. And that business becomes part of Google. And that person and their team come in and manage it as an enterprise within Google and use Google's resources to build and push it to a new level. Sorry about the background. This working from home situation will be the death of all of us. But we have incentives that are built into how we work and our human resource setup that incentivize innovation. It's just that I can't speak publicly about them, but yes, they do exist, and they're important in driving innovation in organizations.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if there are more questions. I think I've picked a few things. One is that you said imagination is better than knowledge. I think that's interesting. One question I had myself was when the pace at which technology will be happening, and insurance companies tend to be very, very structured, highly regulated. Is the real ability to change, and do you think that the traditional setups are going to innovate at the pace the world is moving, or will this be grounds that will be covered by new entrants who have the capacity to actually be agile enough to make those necessary changes? So how would you see that?
Yeah, thank you, George. I think it's a good point, and I think the trick really is in building a digital workforce and nurturing that culture of innovation. Because I see that some of the studies that have been done, I've seen that the insurance industry significantly lags behind other institutions, whether it's finance or tech, in the number of digital employees, or employees working on things like software engineering, design, software design, product managers, data analysts. In some studies, they've seen that such employees account for 8% of the total workforce, in contrast to 36% in many other institutions. So I think, based on building a talent acquisition engine or a talent acquisition program that nurtures a culture of innovation, and ensuring that technology is core to building business transformation, I think that should take care of many of the challenges that might arise on the company wondering, or the organization wondering, whether we are up to speed, because the talent exists out there. And if we are able to build a talent acquisition and innovation culture program and strategic plan that we keep iterating, then we would be secure in the knowledge that we are answering and keeping pace with what's happening in emerging technologies and being able to see what might disrupt us on the horizon before it hits us.
Yeah, thanks. So I don't know if there are questions from the physical audience. I see another question from the director. You can see that it's pretty long, but the insurance industry has a long way to go in actualizing technology journey. From your experience being an insurance customer as well, what bare minimum can you advise insurance players to implement, especially so that we can delight our customers, bring about efficiency and effectiveness, both in underwriting and in claims?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. I think, and it's actually very practical because it speaks to my being, to my being a customer and a consumer of insurance products. I've always liked the idea that I can bundle my insurance of property with an investment. I think that is one of the things that I saw that is innovative, because as a user, I've always been very wary of, oh, I'm paying premiums, and then at the end of the year, if the risk doesn't materialize, the money is gone. But of course, many of us don't understand the risk that the principle of pooling of risks. And I know some of the flack that the insurance industry gets is you didn't pay my insurance, even though I paid premiums a whole year. Many customers and many clients look at it as an investment as opposed to I am pooling my risks, like in a chama, where I know if the risk happens to someone else, the money will be available for them. So I think leaning more on the investment side, I like the fact that my insurance provider is always on alert on when it's about to expire. I think it makes proper business sense. And the way I get reminders, that is the basic minimum I would expect. But on the higher side, I've always wanted to understand what are the risk profiles that I'm exposed to as a citizen, and what are the best products that speak to my particular needs. And I know this is a challenge of access to data. So if I know I've heard of at least an insurer in South Africa where they give you an incentive to buy a device that helps you track your footsteps and your activity. And the more you reach, better goals in terms of your well-being and health and physicality, they reduce your premium. And they have a way of working on the risk of you falling sick and all of that. And so they incentivize you to keep healthy. They even give you a smart device and ask you to agree for them to maybe access some kinds of data about your health and your level of activity. And that builds into the value of your insurance program for health and everything, insurance product. I think that's a very good example. I've always been very skeptical of these wearable devices that track my health, because people like to compete and all of it, and they kind of set a very high barrier for number of steps a day. I don't like to be under that kind of pressure. But if my insurance company comes to me and tells me that this is something that we can use to evaluate how we customize and personalize your health insurance product, that would be a conversation that will get me interested. So I would like to see more of that, and I would recommend more of that if it's not being done among insurance players, whether it is in the health sector or it's in insurance and all the other, motor vehicle insurance and the other product verticals as well. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, there's one more question, and it's asking the impact of the coming to force of the Data Protection Act. How will that impact innovation in insurance, given some of the innovations around the cloud, data sharing, analytics? I think you talked about it briefly, but maybe you could directly respond to that.
Yes, absolutely. I think the bill or the act came into force last year, and right now the office of the Data Protection Commissioner here in Kenya is working on regulations to implement a number of its provisions. I think first of all, the implications generally I think are good and great. Data protection and privacy is a very important subject, and it's important, though belatedly, that Kenya has enacted this law so that people can feel that there's a level of confidence in how their data is managed, and that organizations that collect data, whether it is the government or private corporations, have legally secured responsibilities and obligations in observing the internationally recognized principles of handling, processing personal data. For Kenya in particular, I think the challenge has been around data localization. There is a provision in there that provides that certain categories of data may be required to be hosted locally. And that may be problematic, I think, from the point of Google in a number of ways, because if a local SMB or even insurance company is required to host the data of its clients only in Kenya, it means that the scope of services, cloud services that you can access is only limited to Kenya. And by the way, even if it's a Kenyan company providing a cloud service, the server may actually be based outside of Kenya. So it becomes very difficult even for SMBs in technology, even local cloud service providers themselves and local businesses to access the most competitive services out there. I know of at least one government organization that has been struggling with this clause, though. And then the other thing, of course, I mentioned security of data. If we can only host data locally, then does it mean that for redundancy, we can't back up the data outside of Kenya? Because again, like the way I explained, the way the internet works is that if a certain server fails, there's a backup server that kicks in, which may not necessarily be based in a particular location. And it works by porting data across, a network of many servers to prevent one point of failure. So we are through Kenya Private Sector Alliance, through American Chamber of Commerce, we are continuing to discuss and engage with the government on some of these provisions. We think by and large the law is great, it protects consumers and we welcome it, but we think it can be improved, especially in the data localization bits. And we are engaging in that, and I encourage also the insurance practitioners to also engage the government and present these kind of concerns.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I think we're just about on time. I see any further questions. Thank you very much for your time. I think those are useful insights, and I hope that we'll also get your contacts to the larger team. I think that data protection, is very important, and it's going to be impactful, and I'm sure there'll be many questions. So yeah, thank you very much, and a lovely day ahead. Back to you, Bwana MC.
We are very excited. Looks like you rehearsed this for the past 6 months or so, because you've been seamless, and we appreciate that. Thank you so much for the presentation, Bwana Michael, and Bwana George, for that chairing of that paper. I wish to ask, is there anyone with a question in the room? Anyone with a question? By the show of hands. Let me see. There being no question inside here, I'm excited, Michael, even when you're working from home.